happened after 2003 or so. But I know back then, around version 3, the llama, as like the mascot of the thing, was just getting very, very fat. Was like a media player, it would take like many dozens of megabytes, maybe hundreds of megabytes just to run the thing. It was becoming completely ridiculous to use that on anything that's not a modern computer. So.
Well, the reason I brought up Winamp really was just because you mentioned it before, and it fits with what I'm going to say next. Because you may remember, Roy, and I'm sure you've made a reference to the news before, but uTorrent is coming to Linux. For those that don't know, uTorrent is a very, very popular BitTorrent client for the Windows platform, and recently they did a sort of community survey type thing where it was asking people what they wanted, and the most popular thing that was asked for, which I think is a testament to Linux distribution and usage on the desktop, was for a native Linux version, and apparently a lot of people were running uTorrent through Wine. And again, I sat and looked at it because I've got a BitTorrent tracker, BitTorrent client, which is Transmission. I've also used Deluge, and I'm looking at uTorrent. I'm trying to work out what's so special about uTorrent. I'm sure it's a great package. It's very, very popular, but I can't actually see what uTorrent offers that Transmission or Deluge doesn't.
It's supposed to be something very simple, and you're not supposed to look at it when it actually works. It's just supposed to get orders of what it needs to download, and it needs to do that efficiently. Now, I personally use KTorrent because it integrates well with my KDE desktop, and that's a natural thing to use when you're a KDE users. But I never actually saw the package you referred to. I mentioned its name lots of times before, like many, many times, but I never actually used it, to be honest. Obviously, I wouldn't use that if it doesn't run on Linux or on BSD, but
I agree. I mean, I've used it on the Windows platform. I've used it on the Windows platform that I had many years ago here. And like you say, all you want is a BitTorrent client that will pick up the download the file, and obviously the job's done. And like I say, I can understand people wanting it if we didn't have a BitTorrent client. It's a very good BitTorrent client, albeit it's closed source, I believe, unless that's changed recently. So I was just wanting to know if you could come up with a reason, because I've been asking it for a long time and nobody's ever come up with a reason as to why uTorrent is so special over Transmission or Deluge in my case, and in your case KTorrent. So it looks like that's going to be an unanswered question for now. Moving on, Roy, you've hopefully got some more things you want to throw at the show?
Yeah, well, I was going to mention something about Android. As I did mention before, Winamp, which, as far as just correct me. The Win actually stands for Windows, no?
I assume so. Yeah.
Yeah, which is interesting because it comes to Android very soon. I don't think it ever was available for Mac OS X, but I could be extremely, extremely wrong. I think at some point, they were talking about porting it to Linux. I don't think it ever happened, but I'm talking about here like 2004, 2003, when I was mostly still using XMMS. I think there were talks about maybe porting Winamp to Linux or something, but I'm not sure. So, in any case, it wouldn't have actually worked, of course, because people have their native players and things they're used to, and the distros tend to package things which are free software. And I suppose Winamp, as far as I know, is still proprietary software. So, and it's a big package now. It's just not a simple player. Maybe they could open components like Helix in Real, just kind of do a PR routine and just say, oh, it's partly open source, it's got components in it, and you can download and play with them if you like. But of course, we won't care about what you did with the code. You can just, play with it, which is a sort of a fake open source thing. And Sky, by the way, is playing the same type of game now. And Opera also open source something, and I think it's licensed under the one of the variants of the BSD licenses. And these are just kind of, at best, kind of fake or PR based kind of open source in scare quotes projects. And one thing I was going to say though about Android is Android is now, if I don't trust statistics too much, and obviously these are like US statistics only, and it's not like China and some of the big countries to be the ones that will dominate some of the big markets. But as far as the US is concerned, based on one company, which I think only counts ad impressions and stuff like that, Android is now the number one platform in the US in terms of usage, not in terms of sales. Although I think in terms of sales, they've already been number one for a while and actually outpaced Apple a while back based on I think based on several firms that count things like sales or things like web usage. But the important thing which I noticed, which was very, very funny to me personally, is watching Windows in it. And I just say, Windows, I'm not sure if they win Windows Phone 7 or maybe Windows Mobile, but it says 1%. Yeah, which just reminded me of the supercomputer situation where you basically see Linux as number one, and then you see Microsoft in mobile, the smaller devices, not the very biggest, but the smaller things which are basically small computers. So we're not talking about embedded chips here. We're talking about phones which are really a powerful processor and everything else, and memory and small computers, and Microsoft is at 1% in terms of market share. And it's really pathetic. And you say, how can it be? This is a company. They started ahead. They had the interfaces and they had the brand and everything, and they ended up in 1%. It's a major failure. And they could actually buy some companies along the way, maybe to try and buy their way into the markets. Of course, they cannot buy Apple or Google because far too big, and Apple is worth more than Microsoft last time I checked. And Android is just number one. I think it's unstoppable now. They just try to sue it with all kinds of things like patents now, and it just shows you we don't really want patents around.
Well, I was trying to look for the official figures in quotes, because I wrote about it on my site. I cannot remember off the top of my head whether it's 200,000 or 400,000 activations a day, Android activations. I believe it's probably going to be 200,000. I don't know if if you had the claimed figure, Roy, if you knew that. It was something very large anyway.
You're talking about a different number from the one if you're talking about the 1% number, that actually comes from, I think, a firm which counts any impressions. But I have to check obviously I don't believe the methods, and I think it's kind of a wishful thinking type of, these are the stats, look, we've got graphs and we've got tables and no standard deviations, nothing about the IP addresses, the distribution in terms of geography. You have to redefine lines to see the BS inside the studies, but it's kind of like a sample point.
I mean, Microsoft seems very happy to quote stats that are based off the same type of principles. So, I mean, I feel quite comfortable saying this one. I'll quote the source on the show notes, and it says, according to this source, which was at the beginning of December last year, obviously, Android activations were 300,000 daily. So that's quite a lot of activations. So I'll put the show notes on the show notes, the link to the source for that. You can make your own judgment as to how accurate you believe that to be. While we're on the subject of phones, Roy, shall we cover the topic on the Windows Phone 7 that I was going to look at in respect of the carriers in the UK?
Sure.
Would you be happy to do that now?
Sure.
Right. What it was for the listeners, last show, if you didn't download it, and if not, shame on you. Last show we talked about the Windows Phone 7 and one of the new emerging allegations against it. Start of a new year and a start of new allegations against Microsoft. And this particular one was that the Windows Phone 7 was eating data when it was left unattended, even if it wasn't doing anything. And this was looked at as a problem if you had a limited or a data cap on your on your data for your phone contract.
Well, it's not just the data.
Yeah.
Consider the type of chip. If you consider the type of chipsets, the last thing you want is a necessary activity. So the certain processors are built to consume energy only when it's doing something, and the platform is supposed to be built to basically do nothing certain periods, so that the scaling on the CPU can ensure it doesn't take up any battery power. So.
Well, adding to that, I mean, it seems at the moment Microsoft apparently is addressing this problem and looking into it to see what it is and see if it's mere coincidence. And we have to be fair here and say that obviously nothing's been confirmed yet. This is the early reports, but certainly there's been some influential people within the Microsoft sphere that have made comments about this. Paul Thurrott, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, has responded to a complaint in relation to this. And I documented it all on the site and I got a bit of feedback. One particular poster who claimed to be a Windows developer, a Windows Phone 7 developer, tried to allege that I was spreading misinformation. Now, if people want to check up on this story, it's well cited on many sites, a lot of mainstream sites, not just OpenBytes, my small little blog. It's on the mainstream sites as well, and I believe the BBC has written an article on it as well. The whole purpose of this chap's argument with me was to say that users shouldn't be going in for a capped data limit on their mobile phone contracts and should have unlimited data.
The user is to blame.